Hi folks, welcome back to my video series. My name is Loy, and in today's sessions we are going to look into our next topic, which is focusing on Azure backup and recovery. Before we continue our talking about today's sessions, just want to remind everyone, please go to the bottom of my YouTube and click on subscribe button to stay tuned for my next upcoming video. Without further ado, let's have a look on what are we going to cover today. In today's sections, we are going to look into how to do backup and recovery within Azure Cloud. That means you do have a workload running on Azure. You have already created Azure virtual machines and you would like to protect using Veeam backup for Azure. All you need to do is just go to the marketplace and you can just go and type Veeam. You're able to deploy this particular virtual appliance called Veeam Backup for Azure. Once you already deploy this particular virtual appliance, you can start to configure policy to do backup, right? The first method is do a snapshot, whereby you can have a short-term retentions, and then for long-term retention, you can put your oldest backup data into Azure Block Storage. So on Azure Block Storage, you can store the backup data as inside the hot tiers or cool tiers, right? And on the screen itself, you're able to see sometimes when you do perform an actions, for example, transferring the backup data into Azure Block Storage, uh, the backup appliance itself will deploy a temporary worker. Okay, we call it as a temporary uh, proxies. All right. So once it's finished, transfers the data into Azure Block Storage. These particular workers will be turned off. Right. Besides that, doing backup and recovery within your own cloud, the next thing is for those of you who would like to transfer back your backup data back to on-prem by using the Veeam backup for Azure and also Veeam backup server on-prem as well, you're able to transfer the data back to on-prem, right? So all you need to do is you need to have a Veeam version 11 deploy on-premise, right? So this is where you use the Veeam consoles to connect to Azure Block Storage. Once you have connecting to the Azure Block Storage, you're able to configure a policy to make a copy of your backup data on the Azure Block back to local repositories. All right. So once you have transferred to local repositories, you have options to decide to restore as a virtual machines on-premise, or you can restore directly to AWS as a virtual machines or Azure virtual machines. All right. The next question that a lot of people ask is, can I restore the data directly from Azure Block Storage? The answer is yes. So you do not need to restore back to on-premise in order for you to recover to on-prem, right? So without further ado, let's have a quick look on our today's demo. First thing is we will try to configure a backup policy, right? Assumes that you already deployed this particular virtual appliance. You can just click on the settings to create your new policy. Select your accounts, then your regions, where your virtual machines is located, and you would like to do backup. So for my case, my virtual machines is located in Southeast Asia, Singapore. Then you select your instance that you would like to protect. So from here, you're able to curate your virtual machines, and you're able to select that as well. Besides than that, you can also based on subscriptions, based on resource group, or even based on tagging as well. You can also configure exclusions for those virtual machines that you do not want to do backup as well. The next thing is in the latest version of version 2, allow you to support application aware. So from these screens, you can just enable application awares and you're able to backup those workload without install agent. And the best part from here is for those of you who probably want to inject your own script, you can now define your Linux script, pre and post script, and even for Windows instance as well. The next thing is defines that you want to do snapshots. all right? And you can also enable backups to object storage. Once you have done that, you can specify your retentions, right? So from here, you can just play around with it, and you can just enable or disable your snapshot or backup. You can also define your retentions, how many copies that you want to keep it as well. So if you look from the screen right now, snapshot is based on the number of snapshots that you want to keep. But if you want to store your backup data into object storage, it's either by days or months. So once you are done, you can click on apply, right? You can also change the other setting as well. So for example, here, this is weekly, right? You can do the same things for monthly and yearly as well. Once you click finish, based on the policy that you define, we're able to give you what we call a built-in cost estimator. So based on the policy that you select, the snapshots and also the backup to object storage, you're able to know what is your total cost based on this particular policy. If you want, you can export out this particular data as well. The next thing is you can set automatic retry, and once you are done, then you click on finish. So that is how easy for you to configure a backup policy. The next thing is you can wait for the time to run, or you can click on menu to start it, right? So this is the progress of how the backup will run. You can see all the histories, right? First, it will do a snapshot. Once it's done that, then it will transfer to object storage. Now we already complete the backup. The next thing is let's simulate to do a recovery. Right. So the next thing is let's check the disk, right? And we're going to remove this particular virtual disk. So inside this disk, it contains of some of the data. So what I'm going to do is go to the portal and remove that particular virtual disk. So I have detached the particular virtual disk on this particular virtual machines. Then just confirms, just go to the resource group and just delete this particular virtual disk. Okay, this is just to make sure that we 100% confirm we deleted this data disk. So the only way for you to recover is you need to rely on Veeam backup for Azure. Well, this will take a while. So double confirm again. And when you click on attach, right? It will give you an error that the particular virtual disk is no longer available. Right, so let's back to the Veeam backup for our Azure, and we are going to do a recovery of the particular virtual disk. So just select which restore point. You can take it from the snapshot or you can take it from the object storage. Right. Restore back to original locations, click next all the way, and click finish. So once it's already restored, you can go back to the portal and attach that particular virtual disk. Click save, and by right now, it should not give you any error message. Right? Update successful. Right. You go back to the particular virtual machines, expand it, then you see the disk, and that is your data. So that is how easy for you to restore an individual disk. Next is let's do some integrations with Veeam Backup and Replication version 11. So this is the latest enhancements. From here, you're able to select to add Veeam Backup for Azure. Alright, since we already deployed the virtual appliance, we just need to connect to the particular virtual appliance. Right, select your correct subscription, select your data center where this virtual appliance is located. Okay, so this is my virtual appliance. I have having a direct connections. Point to your credentials, right? So I'm just going to get my VBA credentials. Copy your storage account and access key. If you enable encryption on the repositories, you can enter the password there as well. Then you click next. So we are establishing a connections to the virtual appliance and also the Azure block storage as well. Right. So once they have done that, on the Veeam backup console version 11, it will automatically go and pull the external repositories, connections to the Azure block storage, right? So from there, you're able to see your backup data as well, right? There you go. And then when you click on external repositories, this is the data that already transferred to object storage. You're able to see all those data, and you can just do a recovery as well, right? By the way, you can also check the compressor and dedupe, right? So you can see from here as well. If you want to configure a policy with version 11, since we already have a connections to the virtual appliance, you're able to come up with a wizard, and from here you're able to configure the policies, and those policies will be appear on the VBA console, right? You can also create a backup copy job. That means you would like to transfer the backup data from the external repositories, which is located on Azure Block Storage, back to on-prem. So you can do that as well. And then you can define your retentions that you want to keep it on-prem, right? So once you click finish, let the schedule run. It will start to copy the data according to schedule. But it will take a while, right? Because the data is quite huge, right? So on here, you're able to see the result of the backup data that I already transferred back to on-prem. So I did transfer AWS, Azure, and also GCP back to on-prem. Then from here, you're able to select any recoveries that you want to perform, either to on-prem, or you can restore to Azure, or you can restore to Amazon. Next thing is how about reporting, right? So if for those of you who want to get reportings, you can use the Veeam one. So in version 11, they has modified to HTML5. So you can go to here and you're able to generate reports. Right now, I'm generating a report about my protected VMs, right? So from this report itself, I'm able to see AWS Azure, right? At this moment, there's no integration with GCP, but it's coming soon in the next versions, right? But it's good enough. From here, I'm able to see how many VM is protected and unprotected as well. This is AWS, right? The backup policies. Next is Azure, right? And then you're able to see how many VM is unprotected. Okay, at least you have a clear pictures, right? How many virtual machine is not protected by our products, right? The next reports that you can look at is the backup copy job. Remember just now we transfer the data back to on-prem. So if you want to check the status, so you can click on this report. From here, you're able to know does it successful transfer the backup data back to on-prem, right? You can see the summary traffics, right? How many data has been transferred back to on-prem. Then from here, you're able to see from GCP, from AWS, and also Azure. Okay. So that is a quick overview about report that you can generate. And if you want to export out, you can export as Excel, PDF, or Words. All right, so we have completed showing you a demos about how to backup and also do recovery using Veeam backup for Azure. Current version is version 2. We also talk about integrations with Veeam version 11, and we also show you on demos how to generate report as well. All right, so hopefully you have a clear understanding on how the solution work. Please stay tuned for my next upcoming video, which I'm going to share on my next series. Thank you very much and see you next time.